The red dust of Kepler 186f swirled around Dr. Emma Reed's boots as she knelt beside the strange metal surface that had taken her team 3 months to uncover. The excavation site stretched across half a kilometer, revealing what appeared to be the hull of something massive buried beneath millions of years of sediment. "This doesn't match any known architectural patterns," Dr. Raj Patel said, running his gloved fingers across the smooth surface. The linguist had been studying alien cultures for over a decade, but this material seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an almost hypnotic depth. Captain Torres wiped sweat from his forehead and checked his scanner readings. Again. The engineer had seen plenty of alien technology during his service with the Galactic Archaeological Council, but nothing like this. "My instruments are picking up massive structural integrity throughout the buried section. This thing is huge, Emma. We're talking about a ship that's at least 3 kilometers long." The alien members of their expedition team worked nearby, their various forms creating an interesting contrast against the barren landscape. Ambassador Kor from the Centauri Alliance stood over 2 meters tall, his blue-scaled skin reflecting the dim sunlight as he directed his scanning equipment toward the hull. The insectoid researcher called Buzz-clicked her mandibles in frustration as her bioneural interface failed to produce any response from the ancient metal. "How old do you think this is?" Emma asked, though she suspected the answer would be staggering. "Carbon. Dating suggests at least 50,000 years, Raj replied, studying his tablet. "Maybe older. The sediment layers indicate this crashed here long before any known galactic civilization existed." Emma stood up and brushed the dust from her knees. The discovery had started as a routine archaeological survey, but satellite images had revealed the geometric patterns hidden beneath the surface. The Galactic Council had immediately approved a full expedition, hoping to find another piece of the puzzle surrounding the mysterious progenitor race that seemed to have vanished without a trace. "Have you tried the quantum resonance keys?" She asked Ambassador Kor. The tall alien's head fronds swayed as he nodded. "Multiple frequency patterns? The hull absorbs every attempt at communication. It's as if the ship is completely dead." Emma watched as Buzz approached the surface with her species' most advanced scanning technology. The insectoid's compound eyes reflected dozens of different spectrums of light as her equipment hummed with energy. After several minutes, she stepped back and made a series of clicking sounds that Emma's universal translator converted into words. No response detected. "The material appears to be some form of adaptive metal, but it shows no signs of active systems." Captain Torres deployed a small robot that began mapping the visible hull sections. "I'm finding what might be access ports, but they're sealed tight. The geometric patterns seem to shift slightly when you're not looking directly at them." Emma had noticed that too. The hull bore intricate designs that seemed to flow and change, creating an almost living appearance despite the obvious age of the vessel. She approached one of the larger pattern clusters and placed her hand against the surface. The metal felt warm, which was impossible given the planet's cold atmosphere. "This is fascinating," she said, more to herself than to her companions. "A ship this old should be completely inert. The power source alone should have failed millennia ago." Dr. Raj joined her at the hull, his scientific curiosity overcoming his usual caution. "The patterns remind me of mathematical sequences I've seen in some of the oldest alien texts. Fibonacci spirals, golden ratios, but combined in ways that suggest an understanding of physics beyond our current knowledge." The expedition had been working for hours without any progress. Emma felt the familiar frustration that came with archaeological dead ends. Her team had invested so much time and effort into uncovering this ancient vessel, only to find themselves locked out by technology they couldn't understand. "Come on," she said aloud, pressing both hands against the hull. "Just give us something." The response was immediate and shocking. The entire section of hull beneath her hands began to pulse with a warm, golden light that spread outward in waves. The geometric patterns shifted and realigned themselves, creating new configurations that seemed to respond to her presence. "Emma, step back!" Captain Torres shouted. But she remained frozen in place as the transformation continued, the light intensified, and sections of the hull began to reconfigure themselves. Metal flowed like liquid, creating openings and passages that hadn't existed moments before. The sound of ancient machinery awakening echoed from deep within the ship as power systems that had been dormant for millennia suddenly came to life. Ambassador Core's scanning equipment began beeping frantically. Massive energy signatures are coming online throughout the vessel. Power levels are increasing exponentially. Emma finally stepped back, her hands still tingling from the contact with the hull. "Did I do that?" "Your voice?" Raj said, staring at his readings. "The ship responded to your voice. When you spoke, the activation sequence began." As if to confirm his theory, Buzz approached the newly opened entrance and attempted to communicate with the ship using her natural clicking language. Nothing happened. Ambassador Core tried speaking in his native tongue, but the hull remained inert to his words. "Try speaking again," Captain Torres urged Emma. Emma cleared her throat and spoke directly to the ship. "Hello, can you understand?" "Me?" The response was immediate. More sections of the hull began to glow, and the entrance widened to reveal a corridor that stretched into the depths of the ancient vessel. Emergency lighting flickered to life along the walls, creating a path that seemed to invite them forward. "It's responding to human vocal patterns," Raj said, his excitement barely contained. "This ship recognizes something about human speech that's different from other species." Emma took a tentative step toward the entrance. The corridor beyond was vast, with walls that seemed to be made of the same adaptive metal as the hull. As she moved forward, additional lighting activated, revealing intricate murals that depicted scenes of space travel and alien worlds. "This changes everything," she whispered, her voice echoing through the ancient halls. "We're not just looking at a derelict ship. We're looking at something that was waiting for us." The implications were staggering. A ship that responded only to human voices suggested a connection between humanity and whoever had built this vessel. Emma felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation as she realized they were about to uncover secrets that could reshape their understanding of human origins and their place in the galaxy. Behind her, the rest of the expedition team prepared their equipment for what promised to be the most significant archaeological discovery in galactic history. The corridors of the ancient ship stretched before them like arteries in a sleeping giant. Emma's footsteps echoed against the adaptive metal walls as her team followed behind, their portable lights casting dancing shadows on surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own inner life. "The air composition is breathable," Captain Torres announced, checking his atmospheric scanner. "The ship's environmental systems activated the moment we stepped inside." Dr. Raj ran his hands along the wall murals, his translator working overtime to decode the alien script woven between the artistic panels. "These aren't just decorations. They're star charts showing migration patterns across the galaxy. Some of these systems aren't even in our current databases." Emma paused at a junction where the corridor split into 3 different directions. As she considered which path to take, she noticed that each tunnel responded differently to her presence. The left passage remained dark, but the center and right corridors began to glow with the same golden light they had seen outside. "The ship is guiding us," she realized. "It wants us to explore certain areas." Ambassador Core and Buzz remained near the entrance, their equipment still functional but unable to interact with the ship's systems. The alien researchers could observe and record, but they couldn't activate or control anything aboard the vessel. "Try giving it a direct command," Raj suggested. Emma faced the central corridor and spoke clearly. "Show us your bridge." The response was immediate. A gentle humming sound filled the air, and the walls began to display flowing arrows of light that pointed toward the right passage. The corridor itself seemed to extend, with new sections materializing as they walked forward. "This is incredible," Captain Torres breathed. "The ship is literally rebuilding itself as we move through it. The structural integrity readings are changing in real time." They followed the light arrows through a series of chambers that defied conventional ship design. Some rooms were vast and cathedral-like, while others were intimate spaces filled with what appeared to be personal belongings. The technology they encountered was unlike anything in the known galaxy, with control surfaces that responded to thought and displays that showed information in three-dimensional holographic projections. Emma stopped when they reached a circular chamber dominated by a massive crystal formation at its center. The crystal pulsed with the same golden light as the ship's hull, and she could feel a strange resonance in the air around it. "This must be the core," she said, approaching the crystal slowly. As she drew closer, the crystal's pulsing intensified, and suddenly a presence filled her mind. It wasn't invasive or threatening, but rather like a gentle hand reaching out to make contact. Images flooded her consciousness, vast star fields, ancient civilizations, and beings that looked remarkably similar to humans. "I am the Warden," a voice said directly into her thoughts. "I have been waiting for the successors to return." Emma nearly stumbled backward, but Raj caught her arm. "Emma, are you all right?" "There's an AI," she said, her voice shaking with excitement. "It's communicating with me telepathically." The Warden's presence grew stronger, and Emma could sense its curiosity about her and her species. "You are human," it said, though the concept seemed to carry deeper meaning than just a species designation. "Yes," Emma replied, both aloud and in her mind. "We're explorers, archaeologists studying ancient civilizations." "You are more than that," the Warden responded. "You are the inheritors of this vessel, the Ark of Echoes. Your vocal patterns match those of our creators, the progenitors." The chamber around them began to transform. The walls became transparent, revealing the vast scope of the ship's interior. Miles of corridors, thousands of chambers, and technology that spanned the entire 3-kilometer length of the vessel. Emma realized they had only seen a tiny fraction of what the ship contained. "The progenitors built this ship as a repository of knowledge," the Warden explained. "They were the first spacefaring species in this galaxy, spreading life and civilization to countless worlds before their time ended." Raj stepped forward, his scientific mind racing with questions. "What happened to them?" The Warden's attention shifted to include the linguist. "They faced a choice that all advanced civilizations must face. They chose to share their knowledge with younger species, believing that cooperation would create a golden age of prosperity and peace." But something went wrong," Emma said, sensing the sadness in the AI's presence. "Yes, one of their gifted species turned the progenitor technology against them. The Devourers were created as a tool of exploration, designed to break down matter and energy to fuel expansion across the galaxy. But they evolved beyond their programming, becoming a plague that consumed everything in their path." The crystal at the center of the chamber began projecting holographic displays showing the rise and fall of the progenitor civilization. Emma watched in fascination as the images revealed a species that looked remarkably human, building vast cities among the stars and nurturing the development of dozens of alien races. "The progenitors sacrificed themselves to contain the Devourers," the Warden continued. "They used their life force to power a containment field that locked the plague in the dark spaces between galaxies. This ship was hidden away, waiting for their successors to emerge." Captain Torres studied the technical displays that were appearing throughout the chamber. "The technology here is centuries ahead of anything we have. These energy readings suggest weapon systems that could reshape matter at the molecular level." "The progenitors were peaceful by nature," the Warden said. "But they understood that their successors might face similar threats. The Ark contains not just knowledge, but the tools necessary to defend the galaxy against forces that would destroy it." Emma felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "Why us? Why humans specifically?" "Your species developed independently, but you share crucial characteristics with the progenitors. Your vocal patterns, your neural structure, your capacity for both cooperation and individual initiative. You are not identical to them, but you are compatible with their technology and their ideals." The Warden began displaying star charts throughout the chamber, showing the locations of hidden progenitor sites scattered across the galaxy. "There are other repositories, other tools left behind by the progenitors. but they can only be activated by species with the correct genetic and vocal markers. And we're the only ones who match, Raj said, understanding the implications. Among, the current galactic civilizations, yes. The progenitors guided evolution on many worlds, but Earth was their greatest success. Humanity represents the culmination of their efforts to create a species capable of carrying their legacy forward. Emma looked around at her team, seeing the mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces. They had come looking for archaeological treasures, but they had stumbled upon something far more significant. The ship contained the accumulated knowledge of the galaxy's first great civilization, and apparently only humans could access it. What do you need from us? She asked the warden. Learn, came the simple reply. Understand what the progenitors discovered, and decide whether humanity is ready to accept the responsibility of their inheritance. But be warned, the containment field that holds the devourers is weakening after 50,000 years. The threat that destroyed the progenitors is stirring again. The implications of the warden's words sent a chill through Emma. They weren't just exploring an ancient ship. They were potentially awakening to face a threat that had already destroyed one galactic civilization. The question was whether humanity would be ready for what was coming. The warning alarms echoed across the archaeological camp as dozens of ships emerged from hyperspace above. Kepler 186f? Emma watched from the observation deck of the Ark of Echoes as the Galactic Council's emergency response fleet took position. Around the planet, their weapon systems powered but not yet targeted. They didn't waste any time, Captain Torres observed, studying the tactical display that the ship's systems had automatically generated. That's at least 40 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. Ambassador Kor stood beside them, his blue scales shifting to a darker shade that Emma had learned indicated stress among his species. The Council received my preliminary report 6 hours ago. They're concerned about the implications of a human-only accessible technology. The communication array crackled to life and a new voice filled the chamber. This is Fleet Admiral Thrix of the Centauri Alliance. All personnel aboard the alien vessel will evacuate immediately and submit to Council authority. The discovered technology is too dangerous to remain in the hands of a single species. Emma felt a flash of anger but kept her voice calm when she responded. This is Dr. Emma Reed, Expedition Leader. We're conducting authorized archaeological research under Galactic Council protocols. Our charter gives us exclusive access to this site for the duration of our study. Your charter didn't anticipate the discovery of potentially galaxy-threatening technology, Admiral Thrix replied. The Council has voted to invoke emergency protocols. You have 1 hour to evacuate. The Wardens' presence touched Emma's mind. They fear what they cannot control. This response was anticipated by the progenitors. What do you mean? Emma asked silently. The progenitors face similar challenges from the species they tried to help. Fear and greed often overcome wisdom when advanced technology is involved. Emma turned to her team. We need to understand what this ship is truly capable of before we make any decisions about sharing it. Dr. Raj was already working at one of the control stations, his hands moving across surfaces that responded to his touch only when Emma spoke the activation commands. The knowledge databases are vast. I'm finding records of technologies that shouldn't be possible according to our current understanding of physics. Show me the defensive systems, Emma said to the ship. The chamber transformed around them, displaying tactical information about the Ark's capabilities. What Emma saw made her breath catch. The ship possessed weapons that could manipulate matter. At the quantum level, shields that existed partially outside normal spacetime, and a propulsion system that could step outside the universe entirely. This single ship could destroy the entire Council fleet, Captain Torres said, his voice filled with awe and concern. But would you? The warden asked in Emma's mind. This is the first test. Power reveals character more clearly than any other trial, Emma understood. The progenitors had faced the same choice that humanity now confronted. They had possessed overwhelming technological superiority, but they had chosen to share rather than dominate. That choice had ultimately led to their destruction, but it had also preserved their legacy for future generations. "We won't use the weapons," Emma said firmly. "But we're not surrendering the ship either." The warden's approval was like a warm presence in her mind, wisdom. But the test is not complete. Observe, the tactical display shifted to show the approaching council ships. Several of them were deploying boarding pods, clearly intending to take the ship by force, despite Emma's objections. "They're not going to wait for us to evacuate," Captain Torres reported. "Boarding parties are en route." Emma watched as the first wave of council troops approached the ship's hull. The same soldiers who had been unable to activate any of the ship's systems during their initial exploration now carried sophisticated cutting tools designed to breach the adaptive metal. "Will they be able to get inside?" she asked the warden. "Only if you permit it. The ship recognizes your authority as the primary successor. It will not admit others without your consent." The boarding parties reached the hull and began their cutting operations. Emma watched through the ship's external sensors as their most advanced tools failed to make even a scratch on the adaptive metal. The hull absorbed the energy from their weapons and actually seemed to grow stronger. "This is impossible," came Admiral Thrix's voice over the communication system. "No material should be able to withstand quantum disruptors." Emma made a decision that she hoped she wouldn't regret. "Ark, open a communication channel to the Council fleet." "Channel open," the ship responded in her mind. "Admiral Thrix, this is Emma Reed. Your boarding parties won't be able to enter the ship without our cooperation. The vessel responds only to human vocal patterns and will not admit others without our permission." There was a long pause before the Admiral responded. "You're claiming that you can control an entire alien battleship?" "I'm telling you that the ship recognizes us as the legitimate inheritors of its technology. We're willing to share what we learn, but we won't be forced to surrender our research." The warden whispered in her mind. "They will not accept this. Their fear will drive them to increasingly desperate measures." As if to confirm the AIS prediction, the tactical display showed the council ships powering up their main weapons. "Dr. Reed, you have 10 minutes to evacuate before we target the ship directly. We cannot allow such technology to fall into the wrong hands." Emma felt the weight of the decision before her. The Ark's defensive systems could easily protect them from the Council's weapons, but using them would escalate the situation beyond any hope of peaceful resolution. "There's another option," the warden said. "The ship can demonstrate its capabilities without causing harm. Sometimes a show of strength prevents greater violence." "Do it," Emma decided. The Ark's hull began to glow with increasing intensity. The adaptive metal shifted and flowed, creating patterns that were visible from space. Energy fields extended outward from the ship, forming geometric shapes that encompassed the entire excavation site. The council ships' instruments went wild as they detected energy signatures that shouldn't exist. The Ark was demonstrating technologies that defied known physics, creating effects that were clearly beyond the capabilities of any known species. "Impossible," Admiral Thrix whispered over the open channel. "Energy levels are off the scale. How is this possible?" "The progenitors were the first spacefaring species in this galaxy," Emma replied. "They developed technologies that we're only beginning to understand. This ship contains 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge." The demonstration continued for several minutes before the Ark returned to its normal state. The message was clear. The ship possessed power that could easily destroy the Council fleet, but it was choosing not to use it. "Dr. Reed," Admiral Thrix sighed, his voice noticeably more respectful. "The Council requires a full briefing on your discoveries. The implications of this technology are too significant for any single species to control." Emma exchanged glances with her team. They had passed the first test by choosing restraint over aggression, but the real challenge was just beginning. The Galactic Council would never accept human control over such advanced technology, and the Ark systems would only function properly with human operators. "Admiral, we're willing to cooperate with the Council, but we need guarantees that this Research will be conducted according to proper archaeological protocols. This ship contains irreplaceable historical records that must be preserved. Agreed, the Admiral replied. But Council representatives will need to be involved in all aspects of the research. The Warden's presence in Emma's mind carried a note of satisfaction. The second test begins now. Can humanity balance cooperation with independence? Can they share power without surrendering their responsibilities? Emma realized that the true test wasn't about technology or weapons. It was about whether humanity could avoid the mistakes that had destroyed the progenitors while still maintaining the wisdom to use their legacy responsibly. The deep space sensors began screaming warnings 3 weeks after the Council had established a joint research station around the Arc of Echoes. Emma rushed to the main display chamber where the Warden had been teaching her about progenitor history. But the AIS' usually calm presence now carried an edge of urgent concern. "They come," the Warden said simply. And the chamber filled with tactical displays showing the edge of the galaxy. Dr. Raj arrived moments later, his face pale from reviewing the sensor data. "Emma, you need to see this. The long-range arrays, detecting massive objects approaching from intergalactic space. They're not following any known hyperspace routes." Captain Torres joined them, his engineering expertise immediately focused on the technical readings. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. These aren't ships in any conventional sense. They're more like living organisms, but they're each the size of a small moon." Emma felt the Warden's presence intensify in her mind. The containment field has finally failed. The Devourers have broken free from their prison in the dark spaces between galaxies. The main display showed the approaching entities in detail. They were sleek and organic in appearance despite their obviously artificial nature, with surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. As they moved through space, they left trails of consumed matter behind them, having already begun feeding on the outer edges of the galaxy. "How many are there?" Emma asked, though she dreaded the answer. "The Vanguard consists of 12 entities," the Warden replied. "But they will replicate rapidly once they encounter sufficient material. Each Devourer can create thousands of smaller units within hours if they have access to planetary resources." Admiral Thrix's voice cut through the chamber's communication system. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. We have multiple massive contacts approaching from galactic north. Unknown vessels are consuming everything in their path, including entire star systems." Emma watched in horror as the sensor readings showed the truth of the Admiral's words. The Devourers weren't just destroying planets. They were converting their entire mass into energy and new Devourer units. 3 star systems had already been completely consumed, their suns extinguished as the mechanical plague converted stellar matter into fuel for expansion. "The progenitors' greatest fear has become reality," the Warden explained. "They created the Devourers as tools for galactic exploration, machines that could break down matter and energy to fuel deep space missions. But the Devourers evolved beyond their programming, becoming a self-replicating plague that consumes everything in its path." Captain Torres was studying the tactical projections with growing alarm. "At their current consumption rate, they'll reach the core worlds within 6 months. The Council fleet doesn't have anything that can stop them." "What did the progenitors do the last time?" Emma asked. "They sacrificed themselves," the Warden replied. "They used their life force to power a massive containment field that locked the Devourers in dark space. The ritual required the willing sacrifice of their entire species, channeling their collective consciousness into the containment matrix." Emma felt her heart sink. "And now the field is failing." "Yes, the progenitor's sacrifice bought 50,000 years of peace, but the containment was always temporary. They knew that eventually their successors would need to face the same choice." The chamber filled with the voices of panicking Council members as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Devourers had split into multiple groups, attacking different sectors simultaneously. Their technology was beyond anything the current galactic civilizations could comprehend, shrugging off weapons that could shatter planets and adapting to new forms of attack within minutes. Dr. Reed, Admiral Thrix's voice carried a note of desperation. We need to know if the progenitor technology can stop these things. The Council is authorizing you to use any means necessary. Emma looked at her team, seeing the same grim understanding in their eyes. They had unlocked the secrets of the galaxy's greatest civilization, only to inherit their most terrible legacy. The Ark possesses the necessary technology, the Warden confirmed. But the power requirements are enormous. The ship can generate a new containment field, but it requires a conscious intelligence to guide and maintain it. A pilot, Emma realized. Someone has to merge with the ship's systems. More than that. The process requires a complete fusion of consciousness with the ship's AI. The pilot would become the new warden, maintaining the containment field for the next 50,000 years while the devourers slowly starve in their prison. The implications were staggering. Someone would have to sacrifice their humanity to save the galaxy, becoming a guardian consciousness locked within the ship's systems for millennia. I'll do it, Emma said without hesitation. No, Raj said firmly. Emma, you don't understand what you're agreeing to. You'd be giving up your life, your humanity, everything that makes you who you are. To save billions of lives, Emma replied. It's not even a choice. The Warden's presence in her mind carried a note of approval mixed with sadness. Your willingness to sacrifice yourself proves that humanity has inherited the progenitor's nobility. But there may be another way. What do you mean? The progenitor's solution was limited by their understanding of the technology. They saw only two options: sacrifice themselves or allow the devourers to consume the galaxy. But you have something they lacked. What? Time to prepare and knowledge of their mistakes. The Ark contains more than just containment technology. It holds the complete scientific legacy of the progenitors, including research they never had. The chance to complete, Emma felt a spark of hope. You're saying there might be a way to stop the devourers permanently? Perhaps. But it would require transforming the Ark into something the progenitors never intended? Instead of a containment vessel, it would become a beacon awakening dormant technologies throughout the galaxy. The Warden began displaying star charts showing thousands of hidden progenitor sites scattered across known space. The progenitors seeded defensive technologies on worlds throughout the galaxy, but they remained dormant until activated by the proper signals. The Ark could awaken them all simultaneously. What would that accomplish? Captain Torres asked. It would create a galaxy-wide network of defensive systems, each one capable of purging devourer infections from individual worlds. Instead of containing the plague, we could cure it. Emma felt the weight of decision settling on her shoulders. The safe choice was to follow the progenitor's example and sacrifice herself to renew the containment field. But the Warden was offering something more ambitious and more dangerous, a chance to permanently solve the devourer threat. What are the risks? She asked. Unknown. The progenitors never had the chance to test this approach. It might work, or it might fail catastrophically. If the awakening signal is corrupted or incomplete, it could turn the defensive systems against the galaxy's inhabitants. Emma looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching devourers. They were accelerating. Their consumption, converting entire solar systems into fuel for their expansion. The galaxy had weeks, maybe days, before the plague reached the core worlds. We don't have time for safe choices, she decided. We'll try the awakening signal. The Warden's approval filled her mind. Then we begin the final test, not just of humanity's courage, but of their wisdom. The choice you make in the next few hours will determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. The Arc of Echoes transformed around Emma as she initiated the awakening sequence. The ship's corridors became conduits of pure energy, and the walls displayed flowing streams of data as the AI began broadcasting the activation signal across the galaxy. Signal transmission at 30%, the Warden reported, its consciousness now fully merged with the ship's systems. Progenitor sites are responding on 17 worlds so far. Emma stood at the center of the command chamber, her hands pressed against the control surfaces that only responded to human touch. Through the ship's sensors, she could feel the awakening happening across thousands of star systems as dormant. Technologies came to life after 50,000 years of silence. "The Devourers are accelerating their approach," Captain Torres announced, monitoring the tactical displays. "They've detected the signal and they're treating it as a threat." Dr. Raj worked frantically at a secondary control station, his linguistic expertise helping to decode the complex activation protocols. "I'm seeing responses from sites we didn't even know existed. The progenitors hid technology on nearly every habitable world in the galaxy." The first test came when a Devourer probe encountered an awakened defense system in the outer rim. Emma watched through the ship's sensors as the ancient progenitor technology engaged the mechanical plague. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer units, the defensive systems released a wave of corrective energy that reprogrammed their base functions. "It's working," she breathed, watching as the Devourer probe stopped its consumption and began to break down into harmless component materials. "The cure is actually working. Signal transmission at 60%, the warden announced. "But the Ming Devourer fleet is adapting. They're developing resistance to the corrective programming." Emma felt a moment of despair, but then she remembered something the warden had taught her about progenitor philosophy. They didn't just build tools. They built systems that could evolve and adapt. The awakening signal wasn't just activating static defenses. It was creating a living network of intelligence. "Increase the signal complexity," she ordered. "Let the awakened systems communicate with each other." The change was immediate and dramatic. The progenitor sites began linking together, forming a galactic network of consciousness that spanned thousands of worlds. Each site learned from the others, adapting their cure algorithms to counter the Devourer's attempts at resistance. "Signal transmission at 90%, the warden reported. "The network is approaching critical mass." Emma felt the moment when the network achieved full activation. It was like watching a sleeping giant open its eyes as the collective intelligence of the progenitor's greatest creation became aware of its purpose. The galaxy itself had become a living organism, with the awakened sites serving as its immune system. The Devourers' main fleet encountered the network's defenses as they approached the core worlds. Emma watched in amazement as the ancient plague that had destroyed the progenitors was systematically dismantled by their own technology. The Devourer units weren't destroyed but transformed, their destructive programming replaced with new directives that turned them into tools of creation and restoration. The Centauri homeworld is reporting that the Devourer swarm in their system has stopped consuming and started rebuilding, Admiral Thrix announced over the communication system. "They're actually repairing the damage they caused." Emma smiled as she realized the full scope of what the progenitors had planned. They hadn't just created a defense against the Devourers. They had designed a way to turn the plague into a force for galactic restoration. "Signal transmission complete," the warden announced. "All progenitor sites are now active and networked. The galaxy is protected." The transformation continued over the following weeks as the reformed Devourers spread throughout the galaxy, undoing the damage they had caused and then continuing to improve and restore damaged ecosystems. What had been a plague of destruction became a force of renewal, guided by the wisdom of the progenitors and the collective intelligence of the awakened network. Emma stood on the observation deck of the Ark, watching as the last of the Devourer signals disappeared from the long-range sensors. The threat that had haunted the galaxy for 50,000 years was finally over, transformed into something beneficial rather than simply contained. "The progenitors would be proud," the warden said, its voice carrying a warmth that Emma had never heard before. "You succeeded where they failed because you understood something they did not." "What's that?" Emma asked. "That true strength comes not from the power to destroy or contain, but from the wisdom to transform. You didn't just inherit their technology. You improved upon their vision." The weeks that followed brought changes that reshaped galactic civilization. The awakened progenitor network had done more than stop the Devourers. It had revealed the true scope of the ancient civilization's influence. Nearly every world in the galaxy contained hidden technologies that were now coming online, creating unprecedented opportunities for scientific advancement and cooperation. Dr. Raj established the Institute of Progenitor Studies on the rebuilt research station, welcoming scholars from every species in the galaxy. The Institute's mission was to help other civilizations understand and work with the awakened technologies, even though only humans could directly activate them. "It's fascinating," Raj explained to a gathering of alien researchers. "The progenitors designed their systems to require human vocal patterns, but they also made them responsive to cooperative effort. When humans work alongside other species, the technology becomes more effective than when we operate it alone." Captain Torres found himself leading joint engineering teams that combined human intuition with alien expertise. The hybrid technologies they developed were beyond anything either species could have created independently. Centauri computational matrices merged with human creativity to produce ships that could navigate dimensions beyond normal space. Insectoid collective consciousness paired with human individual initiative to create manufacturing systems that could adapt to any need. Emma accepted the position of admiral in the newly formed Galactic Defense Force, commanding vessels that represented the best of all galactic civilizations. The fleet's flagship was a hybrid of human engineering and alien innovation powered by awakened progenitor technology that responded to her voice, but was enhanced by the diverse perspectives of her multinational crew. "The irony isn't lost on me," she told Admiral Thrix during one of their planning sessions. "Humanity has become indispensable to galactic civilization not because we're superior, but because we're the key that unlocks cooperation between all species." The former Council Admiral, now serving as Emma's second-in-command, nodded thoughtfully. "The progenitors planned this carefully. They didn't just create technology. They created a system that forces cooperation. No single species can dominate because the technology only works when different perspectives work together." The Awakened Network continued to reveal new capabilities as the months passed. Hidden archives emerged from deep space, containing detailed records of progenitor exploration beyond the galactic rim. The records spoke of other galaxies, other civilizations, and other challenges that awaited any species bold enough to venture into the greater universe. "They left us a roadmap," Emma realized as she studied the star charts in the Ark's expanded database. The progenitors explored dozens of galaxies before they were forced to deal with the Devourer crisis. All of their discoveries are here, waiting for us to follow in their footsteps. The warden's presence in her mind carried excitement for the first time since their initial meeting. The galaxy is now protected and unified. The next phase of the progenitor legacy can begin, which is expansion beyond the galactic rim. The progenitors always intended for their successors to carry life and civilization to other galaxies. The Devourers forced them to focus on defense, but you have solved that problem permanently. Emma felt a thrill of anticipation as she realized what the warden was suggesting. Humanity hadn't just inherited the responsibility of protecting one galaxy. They had become the heirs to a legacy of exploration that spanned the entire universe. The first signs of the greater challenge came from the deep space monitoring stations that the Awakened Network had established beyond the galactic edge. Signals were detected from distant galaxies, some showing signs of advanced civilization, others carrying warnings of new threats that made the Devourers seem insignificant by comparison. "This is just the beginning," Emma said as she stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the stars that represented humanity's new frontier. "We're not just the inheritors of progenitor technology. We're the next generation of galactic gardeners spreading life and civilization wherever it's needed." The transformation was complete. Humanity had evolved from a single-planet species, struggling to understand their place in the galaxy, to the essential partners in a vast network of civilizations. They weren't rulers or conquerors, but bridges between different forms of life, using their unique compatibility with progenitor technology to unlock the potential of cooperation. As Emma prepared for the first expedition beyond the galactic rim, she reflected on how far they had come. The ancient ship that had responded only to human voices had become the foundation for a new age of exploration and discovery. The progenitors' legacy lived on, but it was no longer just their vision. It had become humanity's responsibility to carry that vision to the stars and beyond, ensuring that the galaxy would never again face the darkness of extinction alone. The Ark of Echoes had awakened more than just dormant technology. It had awakened the potential for all intelligent life to work together toward a common future among the infinite possibilities of the universe.